Your dreams will come true if your mind isn't glued to the fact that life is so blue.
Hi, folks. It's Sandy, and today we're with
Ryan Roxie.
Ryan Roxie. How's it going?
I'm good. How are you guys doing?
I'm fantastic. I can't believe that I'm talking to you. AnaLynne, come on, you gotta ask.
We didn't officially meet yet, so that's like why I want to officially meet and greet virtually. Hello, I'm Ryan Roxie.
Oh wait, that you do it with your right hand, right? Okay, so that would be. It's so nice to meet you. Wow, you know what?
What's your full? What is your full name?
To which one of us are you speaking?
I'm speaking to the interviewer.
Oh, of course.
Not you, Sandy. Sandy, I know you well, but
you know me well.
You're Barbara Walters over there. That's who I want to know. The full name.
The full name? This is not something anybody's ever asked before.
That's why I have a podcast as well. I asked some questions too. So do you have a full name? Do you have a middle name? Is there a last name? Is there some heritage going on?
Oh my God, stressful. And now I have to say it without laughing. That's the issue.
What's the name?
AnaLynne.
What?
AnaLynne.
AnaLynne. Okay.
AnaLynne. Lynn Roxie. Lynn.
AnaLynne. Middle name?
This is a historical moment. I think we're going to have to develop one.
Okay. You can have time to think about that. Last name?
This is a historical moment.
So you're like Prince, basically. You're like Prince or Sting or Seal.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
AnaLynne, nice to virtually meet you. Now you start asking the questions, not me. I'm.
Oh, all right. How was music first brought into your life, Roxie?
This is a very cool question because the reason I am doing your podcast today, one of the many reasons, is because I saw Danny Bonaducci on your podcast. And yes, Danny Bonaducci is a little bit responsible for me diving into music and my first exposure to music, because when I was growing up, there was a show called The Partridge Family.
Yeah, I've never heard of that.
And although Danny Bonaducci wasn't he wasn't the guy that inspired me, it was his brother in the show, Keith Partridge, David Cassidy, that made, and I had posters of him on my wall, so I kind of wanted to become those posters on my wall, and I used to watch The Partridge Family every single week. So that was part of the reason.
That's so cool. Wait, I didn't know this.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
No.
Oh my, well, now I have to ask, what's your favorite Partridge Family song? Do you have a favorite?
Well, I mean, the obvious ones are I Think I Love You, and what was it? I think there was Puppy Love, or was that Jimmy Osmond?
That was the
I get, yeah, because I was at the same time, you have to understand, I was 70s pop idols. I was, worshiping them. The Osmond Brothers Live, Crazy Horse is one of my favorite albums as well. But getting back to the Partridge Family and David Cassidy, his solo album Cherish
Oh
is
my
the word
gosh,
that I used to describe that was a really good album for me. And what other songs, Partridge Family songs? Yeah, I mean, I guess the ones that you would kind of suspect, the ones that you'd hear on the TV show. But, I'm trying to think of some deep cuts, but Cherish is a pretty deep cut of that album, off that album.
Oh,
And I'm not remembering any tracks right now exactly, but the whole entire album inspired me to like part my hair in the middle, I guess.
that is so funny. No, but who needs tracks? Just hear the whole album all the way through. That's the way you gotta do it. Yeah.
I hope the whole younger generation can have that sort of thinking more so than just playlists. Because the funny thing is, we used to really work to make a playlist. We'd have to take all our records or all
45s.
our tapes and tape to tape, cassette to cassette, and make a mixtape. And nowadays, everything is a playlist. So we were aspiring to get to that thing that you guys all have at the touch of a button now, where the norm for us was listening to an album first track all the way to the end because there was no other choice really. And you guys, I love to hear that you will listen to an entire album because the attention span, as we know, gets shorter and shorter each year. So you know what? You keep carrying the torch. The both of you keep carrying the torch of rock and roll and listening to albums from the beginning to end. That's a good start.
Absolutely. It's all me. I'm a trendsetter. You know that, right?
AnaLynne, one name, kind of two names, but no last name. You really are.
Oh man, that's so funny. But with album, you can't just listen to one track off like the wall. You gotta, it's a story. Or Tommy. Tommy's so good. You gotta hear
Wow.
the whole thing. So
For me, it was like movie soundtracks like that, because those are epic albums that you're talking about. And one of the biggest, I just actually said this in a interview lately, is one of my top 10 albums growing up, influential albums, was the movie soundtrack to Jesus Christ Superstar.
oh my
That
god.
was another, that's the one that you listen to all four sides as well.
Oh, it is so good. Oh, I just got that album. Actually, maybe it wasn't that recent now. Could have been a couple months ago. I don't know. I love it so much. It's so good. You have such great taste. I knew you
You
would.
should get Tim Rice, who wrote all the lyrics. He's actually written with my boss, Alice Cooper, on a bunch of songs. Tim Rice and Andrew Lloyd Webber, he's the lyricist. So
I didn't
yeah,
know
get
that.
him on your podcast. I think
That would be
yeah.
so cool. Oh, I'm gonna have to. So, okay, we have to go back into you specifically. So, what instruments do you play?
Started off with the trumpet.
Oh,
I
really?
know that sounds weird.
No, that's
Yeah,
cool.
my father played the trumpet. Yeah, my father played the trumpet in marching band. My mom played drums in the marching band. So trumpet and the drums were two of the first instruments that I learned in the school band. But there was always a guitar on the couch, kind of like the way you have your guitars propped up there. Ours, as a kid, were always there on the couch, just an acoustic guitar, and my parents just would say, mess around with it, play with it, even if it's just strumming. I even have a guitar in my hands today doing this interview. It's a good idea to just have a guitar lying around. And I've always tried to have that in my own house for my own kids, just a couple guitars lying around on stands or something like that. So if they wanted to pick them up and play them, they could. So yeah, trumpet, guitar kind of on the couch, drums in the school band. Then I took guitar seriously there on out.
I love that you're doing this interview and you just have a guitar in your hands. It's just, that's what's right.
Well, I mean, I'm working on music all day today. It's not every day that I get to do that, but today I've actually really been focusing and getting ready for the new tour that we're going on with Alice Cooper starting in just a few weeks. So I'm excited about that.
Oh, you want to tell us a bit about the tour?
I think the tour is going to be a big one this year. The rest of the year, we're going to be touring with Motley Crue, Def Leppard, Rob Zombie, Ministry, Filter, and a bunch of Alice Cooper solo shows as well. Plus, a new Alice Cooper album comes up August 25th. So it's called Road. So we have a new album with the band all had the writing on. Everybody in the band contributed with the writing of the songs, which is a cool thing. Alice hasn't done that in a few albums. He's usually, in the studio with other musicians, but we used the band, the Road Band on this album, and that's why it's called Road. And basically, it's the first album that I've written songs with Alice since Dirty Diamonds and The Eyes of Alice Cooper. So that was kind of exciting too.
I bet. So when you say that you contributed to the writing, was it the music part of it or lyrically? Do you have any contributions?
Everybody brings their maybe some song ideas, maybe someone has a riff, maybe someone has a little lyric idea, and then we all put it into a pot. Alice will, you know, take anybody's idea, and then as soon as he starts writing lyrics for it, starts writing his melodies, it becomes an Alice Cooper song. And that's the beauty of like turning a riff into an Alice Cooper song. Because the minute he puts his voice on something, and then he starts, you know, thinking about lyrics and what I should put here and put there, and what, then it immediately becomes an Alice Cooper song, and you're part of the Alice Cooper legacy.
Before you were with Alice Cooper, were you writing songs on your own? Were you in bands where you were writing?
Yeah, I was writing, and I have been writing for quite a few years. Songs. I'm always trying to, you know, write a really good 3-minute pop song, and that's what I was raised on. I was raised on, like I said earlier, bands like, you know, Partridge Family pop, but then a little bit more heavier guitar oriented, but still, you know, with that pop vein, bands like Cheap Trick, um, Aerosmith,
Oh my gosh.
everything, you know, even all the way, you know, growing up all the way to Oasis, where everything kind of leads back to the Beatles, who to me wrote the best pop songs and probably some of the best rock songs and best songs period ever. So I've just been trying to recreate, you know, my take on it and over the years, and put out a bunch of albums under my own name, under the band Roxie 77, other band names that maybe I couldn't say in front of AnaLynne, and then
Why not?
well, let's just call it DPM. That was the name of one of my first solo bands, DPM, and that's an acronym for something else, AnaLynne, that I don't want to talk about with you present right now.
So
You got to
funny.
put your earmuffs on. No, it's not that bad, but you know what? Hey, we're doing
I
a
have to do some
podcast.
deep research
Don't
now.
worry about it. It's not as controversial or crazy as you think. It's just one of the band names that I've had. We've had a bunch of weird band names. I was played in a band called Don't Touch Grandpa.
um,
Yeah, but it's not what you think. Don't Touch Grandpa comes from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre trilogy, I believe it is. I think there was a trilogy. Maybe there's more than that of the movies. Your viewers are going to have to do the research. How many Texas Chainsaw Massacres were there? But Grandpa was one of the characters in it, and one of the catchphrases was "Don't touch Grandpa." So we called it that. Just a lot of bands. I tell people that I've been in about 100 bands, 98 you never heard of, but there's a
that's
couple
cool. That's
that
cool.
you have.
Oh, do you remember the first band you were in?
Definitely. The first band I was in, it was a talent show for Pleasanton, California, Alameda County Fair. And there was 3 guitar players in the band. We had no drummer and no bass player. We were 3 guitar players, and we played a Rolling Stones song and a Loggins and Messina song. And your viewers might know it as a Poison song, and they might not even know it as a Poison song, but that song was called Your Mama Don't Dance, Your Daddy Don't Rock and Roll. So between the Rolling Stones, Jumpin' Jack Flash, and Your Mama Don't Dance, Your Daddy Don't Rock and Roll, we got into the talent show audition, and we passed the audition. But when they were asking us, what's the name of the band, we hadn't thought that far ahead because we didn't think we're going to get into the talent show to begin with. So we all looked at our guitars, and on the headstock of mine was a thing called Stratocaster. So I said, "Oh, we're the Stratocasters." So that was my first band name, was the Stratocasters.
Oh my gosh, you just came up with that on the spot?
It was one of my finer moments of improvisation.
That is so cool. That's a wild name. So did you do anything after that with that band?
Well, there's only so many talent shows you can win. We won first prize, went on to win first prize in the Alameda County Fair, and that's, you know, I think we retired after that. You know, we went out on a good note, but then everybody started playing with different bands. That's how we said, well, let's get a drummer now. Maybe let's try getting a drummer, and then we were in a band called Starfire.
Oh, that's cool.
Starfire does sound like a cool name of band. I don't know who came up with that, but all I do know is that the logo that we had were those iron-on letters, and they were in space tape. Starfire, space tape. I guess it would be Mylar. You call it Mylar. Back then, we called it space tape.
I
It
don't know
was
what
the
that is
seven.
now.
It was the 70s. Mylar? You know what a Mylar is. It's those Mylar balloons that you have. AnaLynne, when she has a birthday party, they have those blow up balloons that are made out of, like, they look like tin foil, kind of
Is that
Mylar.
what we call that? I didn't know that. Is that bad? Should I have known that for this interview?
No, you know what? You didn't need to do a deep dive on Mylar and its origins, but it's fine. Now I'm glad that I taught you something. At the end of this interview, you will walk away knowing that Mylar is a type of balloon. See, AnaLynne, are you happy?
I'm ecstatic. The things I learned doing this podcast. You know what? I want to know about your podcast. Will you just tell us about it?
Sure. I started a podcast right before the dark times.
Dark times.
As the dark times, yeah, yeah. We all know about the dark times.
Yeah.
No, it was like late 2019, right before the pandemic hit. I was started interviewing a couple people. I think Phil X from Bon Jovi was my first interview, and then I also had the guitarist and singer Charlie from Blackberry Smoke. So I started doing these couple interviews, and then the dark times hit, and I was like, you know what? I need to really kick it into overdrive, because my idea was just to do a couple interviews with guitar players I respected. And then once I had all this time on my hands, because we couldn't go on tour, we just started doing it, once, twice a week. And we just started putting out podcast after podcast until now we've had over 100 and closing in on 140 episodes. So it's the thing about podcasts is you just got to stick with it. It's not easy. Most people don't make it past number 50. So, it's one of those things you just got to just commit to, like practicing, like playing guitar, and be persistent at it. So that being said, In the Trenches podcast, which you can find on my website, or you can find it on YouTube at Ryan Roxie Official. That's where I have all my music and my videos and stuff. But you can go check out the podcast now. It's been on a little bit of a hiatus now since I've been moving countries and going on tour, but it's going to kick back into gear as soon as I get to my actual house that I have down here, and I set up a media room. That's why everything's so blurry right now, because I'm not in a media room or anything like that. I'm just sort of in a nice, boring little bedroom, but it's cool. I'm not sure. I'm trying to look. You have a public phone in your basement as well.
Isn't it
That's
cool?
cool.
It's a payphone. Isn't that neat? Every time I interview someone, they bring up the payphone.
Yeah, well, I mean, that it's something that not a lot of people have, unless they live in a New York subway station in the 1980s.
I live in a New York subway station in the 1980s. I don't think that would be very much fun. I don't know. I mean, it was there.
Not in the summer. The smell.
Oh my God.
The sights and smells of New York City in the summer. Woo. Have you ever gone to New York City? Either of you?
A few times. Well, you know what? I don't think she has. I've been there a few times. I'm on Long Island, so we don't go out there very often. But,
Oh, is that where you're from, in Long Island? Do you guys live out in Long Island? Okay,
yeah, everyone expects me to, Long Island, but no, that's not me.
No, you definitely don't have the Long Island accent.
Yeah, everyone expects me to. I don't know. I don't know anybody that speaks like that.
Well, that's because the people that you meet, especially people in my band that are from Long Island, have like the most New York accent I've ever heard. And I'm not joking. That is a really bad Long Island accent. I can't do it like the way Tommy does it, but what do you mean? I mean, what are you kidding me? I can't do a New York accent all of a sudden, but a Long Island accent is more, I guess it's more over the top than most. And our guitar player in the Alice Cooper band, Tommy Hendrickson, definitely has one. So I don't know how you escaped it. You escaped from New York. How'd you do it?
I don't know. You know what? It just happened. I'm in a little place that nobody knows. I'm in like this little corner of Long Island that nobody even knows exists.
All right. Well, you
It's
know what?
magical.
One thing about having a podcast and doing a podcast is getting a comfortable sort of setting that you can, you know, not always be hunched over. Although a lot of times when you have questions to one side and you have a microphone and others, and then you're kind of staring at yourself, I can see where, it does get that, you can get into some uncomfortable positions sometimes.
Yeah, and then the transition from the discomfort to being comfortable is not always the smoothest thing. I mean, you don't want your guest to think you're strange, especially when you're meeting them for the first time.
I
But
don't think
I think I've
either of
already
you are strange.
established that. You already know how strange I am. But I think you're cool.
Ah, I think you guys are actually quite cool doing your podcast together and just completely, trying something new in the podcast world. How many ventriloquist podcasters are there? Is there a great many of you? Or you could be I think you're, you know, a small echelon of ventriloquists slash podcasters. Guitar player podcasters are even a small amount as well. I think both of us are in a kind of an elite category as far as like what we do. I know a few guitar players that have podcasts, but they most normally interview either musicians or they do equipment and sort of like a guitars and effects reviews and stuff. I try to talk to everybody because on my podcast, I've had I've had golfers on, I've had comedians on, I've had intellectuals on, and a bunch of guitar players as well, but drummers, bass players, actors. Yeah, like I said, I think it's good, and I've seen your podcast before where you have a spectrum, and that's good.
I try to get anybody that'll say yes. That's
Well,
not
like I
always
said, Danny Bonaducci uh, uh, was the was one of the reasons why I said yes. And then you being so sweet in the emails, explaining what you did, saying that look, me and AnaLynne, sorry, AnaLynne,
How
I keep,
dare you, Roxie? How dare you? I am offended.
well, some people are good with names. And because so they're good with faces, and some people are good with faces and they're good with names. Unfortunately, I'm good with 1970s lyrics to like songs.
Oh my god.
And that's where all my brain snaps went. So I can't actually names and faces sometimes I'm not so good at. So I will remember AnaLynne from now on. I won't mess it up again. A lot of younger people out that I'm happy about that are more into record players than video games. They're more into headphones and the experience of putting on an album than they are watching, um, something on YouTube or TikTok. See, YouTube I don't mind because it's a little bit more long form. TikTok, you have to really cram a lot of information in a short amount of time, and with the podcast, it's just hard to do. So I haven't really dove that far into the short form. Long form is
I
good, but I
understand.
I do a little bit of the short form with this thing I do called Enjoy the Riff. So if
Oh,
any of your yeah, you've seen it.
yeah.
But
I discovered it like 2 months ago, and I love it.
well, thank you very much. It's one of those things that I started because I knew that if I could maybe grab someone's attention for just like a minute, like playing a guitar riff that's an iconic riff, maybe I could convince them to play guitar for a lot longer. And hopefully, they'll want to make guitar more than just a hobby or more than just something that they pick up and quit. So I put this thing together called Enjoy the Riff. And every single Tuesday, I put out an iconic guitar riff that I teach in about maybe a minute or less, right around a minute. And you can have the attention span for 1 minute, I think, even on Instagram. So if anybody wants to go check out that, it's at Ryan Roxie on my Instagram. All the links that I have for anything that you want to see in my world, whether it's touring, whether it's live masterclasses or whether it's the podcast, is all at
I want to
ryanroxie.com.
know. Give me some of your favorite bands and your greatest influences, because I am really intrigued.
Okay. Like I said, Cheap Trick was a big, influential band, and we've been lucky enough to tour with them over the years and become friends with a lot of those band members. Rick Nielsen is I love Rick Nielsen. He's a huge influence as far as a guitar player and a performer. The singer Robin Zander actually guest sang on my album, Imagine Your Reality. We did a cover. I put a cover of California Man, which is a cover song that Cheap Trick did of The Move originally on their Heaven Tonight album, track 3. I put California Man on my album, track 3. So, and had him sing on it. So we have a duet there. Other bands that I like, very influenced by that, let me see, bands that you might not know. I was into the late 80s, early 90s, into a thing called Britpop. I still am. I love bands from Manchester, bands like the Stone Roses, bands like Happy Mondays, Black Grape, which is the next incarnation of Happy Mondays, lead singer Sean Ryder, big Beatles fan. So there's that connection for me. Other bands that maybe no one's ever, I don't talk about much, but very influential. From Australia, a female lead vocalist band called the Divinals. So they were great. If there was no Divinals, I don't think there would be any band called Garbage. And maybe you don't know the band Garbage, but Shirley is the singer of that band. And I see the direct influence. Female rock and rollers influenced by Pat Benatar. I don't know if you know who she is as well, but she's got tons and tons of great songs.
Yeah, I don't know.
Her,
She's killer.
well, you're 15. I don't know. I don't know where it goes because you are already surprising me of all the bands in the 70s knowledge that you have, but I don't know if it extends into the 80s as well. So Pat Benatar, her husband is Neil Giraldo, who's a big influence as far as guitar player. The Billy Idol band with Steve Stevens on guitar, I'm a huge fan of. And luckily enough, my boss, the guy that I get to be on stage with every night, I grew up listening to him as well. So I get to play with one of the posters on my wall, a guy named Alice Cooper. It's pretty cool.
That must have been surreal when you got the job. I mean, I can't even imagine.
It was one of those moments where all the stars aligned. People talk about that. And I just was at the right place, right time. But in order to be at the right place at the right time, I had to be in a lot of wrong places at wrong times for many, many years before that. So everything kind of led up to this audition that I did. And it was one of those auditions where I felt that I did what was needed to get the gig as far as playing the songs a certain way. I knew they had a shred guitar player already picked out in Reb Beach, who's from the band Winger. He was the first guitar player in Alice that I ever toured with. So I decided to be that 70s original Alice Cooper band member vibe when going into the audition, and I did. And I kind of just strummed the guitar down real low, played a little bit. I didn't play sloppy, but I just played a little bit more vibey, and Alice liked it. So I got the gig, and it's been one sort of exciting thing each tour, every year that we've toured since then. You know, he's allowed me to see the world playing music, and that's all I can ask for.
Beyond the clouds and the rain, a place where your sadness drains, where the sun peers over your sadness and your pain. There is no gravity Yet within this cavity, you make your own truth. Your dreams will come true if your mind isn't glued to the fact that life is so blue. Your dreams cannot stay if you don't repay yourself for making it through. The path to making your dreams come true.